This Formica Ereptor queen has usurped a small Matabele ant nest. Having killed the previous queen, she has taken on her scent and will now be laying her own eggs. With a few Formica Ereptor workers already hatched, a grisly task awaits them. They are to dismantle the existing Matabele ant brood chambers, making space for this queen's own brood. But not before these Matabele ants have served their new queen one last time, by killing the other invertebrates in the immediate vicinity. Hello there all you absolutely magnificent people, and welcome back to another episode of An Ecologist Plays, where we talk about nature while playing games. My name is Will, I'm an ecologist by training, and this is Empires of the Undergrowth. And as you saw there, we are going to be doing our last Formica Ereptor mission. We are going to be playing Drive Them Back, but we are not going to be playing it on hard difficulty as we have thus far. We are going to be playing it on extreme difficulty, a little bit more challenging than usual. So there we go. So let's meet the colony, shall we? We have our Formica Ereptor queen, we've got our Formica Ereptor workers, we also have the rapid-fire wood ants forming part of this colony, along with the taunt leafcutter mages, and of course, who can forget the vigorous fire ants? And then who can forget the super soldiers of the big-headed ants, along with the Monomorium carbonarium, the little black ant soldiers also present here. And then you know what? Let's fight the driver ants with their new world counterparts. We're going to bring in the army ant major soldiers as well. So this will be the Formica Ereptor colony we are going to be taking on the driver ants with. Let's see how that goes. As mentioned there, the first thing the Formica Ereptors do is they use the Matabele ants that are still part of this nest to take out the other invertebrates in the immediate vicinity. This will open up new brood chambers here, without having to worry about spending energy raising the other ants. And these Matabele ants really are so nice and strong, really great soldiers to have as part of the strike force that is clearing the nest. And they do make very short work of the adult earwigs as well as the earwig nymphs here. But now the fun begins, because almost immediately the Matabele ant brood chambers are dismantled, killing the previous inhabitants of this nest. And in their place, the Formica Ereptors will have the spicy ants. Red imported fire ants, very aggressive. They will make a fine addition to this colony. And along with the fire ants, the first brood chambers of the Formica rufas, the wood ants, have also been constructed. They will bring range capabilities to this colony. This Formica Ereptor nest has 4 termite mounds to obtain food from. However, one is currently under attack. The first driver ants are making an appearance. These nomadic ants will raid until there are almost no invertebrates left in the vicinity of their temporary bivouac. The Formica Ereptors are mounting their first attack on the northeastern termite colony. Obtaining quite a bit of food in their first raid, they waste no time carrying back the spoils of war. This has been a very successful initial raid. But they will need to do many more of these if they are to survive the onslaught of the black driver ants. Speaking of which, Dorylus nigricans, the black driver ants, with extreme polymorphism in their worker caste. You've got the major soldiers, you've got the media, and you've got some minor workers as well. All of them forming part of a massive army that is set to take out some of these termite mounds. Now, as mentioned, they are very closely related to the army ants of the New World. However, these Dorylus species are confined to Africa and Eurasia. They do not occur in the Americas. But like the army ants of the New World, these ants are blind, relying on scent and vibrations to detect their food. But unlike those ants, these ants are not quite as picky in what they eat, whereas some of the New World army ants, for example Eceton burchelli, will specialize to some extent on feeding on the eggs and larvae of other social species. These ants will go for any invertebrates they can find. And so yes, they will go for termites, but termites will not form the bulk of their food. Instead, any invertebrates are fair game. A mysterious circle belies a dangerous threat. This is the lid of a trapdoor spider. It will almost certainly devour any ant that strays too close to it. Luckily, it seems as though the Formica Ereptors are walking by just out of reach of this trapdoor spider. Many of these trapdoor spiders will have strands, silken strands, that radiate out from this central lid, and any ant that brushed up against one of those sensory lines will notify the spider that, listen, there is in fact food walking just outside. Maybe go and get that. As the sun rises, the last of the termites are gathering food. It is time for them to head back to their nest. This is the last chance for the Formica Ereptors to snag their lunch. As the sun rises, rainbow lizards, the agamas, are heating up. These ectothermic reptiles require the sun's rays to heat up enough for them to do their hunting. They are too dangerous for our colony to take on at this point in time. But, given time, they too shall fall before the Ereptors. The Ereptors have started excavating some of the termites that are in the mound. However, there are other ants in the vicinity. African stink ants, massive in size compared to the Formica Ereptors, will pose a significant challenge to this fledgling colony. We must proceed with caution. In fact, the first stink ants are moving right past the tunnels that this Formica Ereptor colony has excavated. Now may be their chance to grab some more termites to feed on. But first, one must get rid of these pesky earwigs that are hiding underground. Luckily, with the Formica rufus spraying their formic acid from behind and the Solenopsis invicta, the fire ants, injecting Solenopsis venom into the earwigs, they do not last long. The Formica Ereptors have taken a page out of the book of the driver ants, having suddenly excavated a large central chamber in this underground nest, very similar to how some of these driver ants would actually do. As night approaches, the termites are active. However, there are other dangerous things outside tonight. This is a wonderful little spider. This is a huntsman spider. This huntsman spider, Pseudomicromata mary, is one of a number of species within the Pseudomicromata genus. Initially believed to only have been one species with a very wide distribution range, it was recently split into 4 species, with this species, Pseudomicromata mary, occurring in West Africa. But there are also some species towards the central parts of Africa, East Africa and also Southern Africa. Pseudomicromata mary is named after the wife of the scientist that described these different species, that split this one species into multiple species, and apparently for her devotion and support of her husband, which I think is just absolutely marvelous. So yeah, this over here, this spider is Pseudomicromata mary. This is a very active spider, as all huntsman spiders are. They don't make a web. Instead, they are wandering spiders. They have got amazing eyesight, able to detect prey from quite a distance away and then hone in on them. Very good vision. And then, of course, they do have venom as well, which they will inject into their prey to subdue them and pre-digest them, allowing them to suck up the juices of their victims. Well, now. But Mary has been chased away. Or she has at least eaten some of our ants, and oh dear, okay, don't go there now, but we've got the alligator sawback scorpion over here, Hottentotta. I was going to say it is a formidable opponent, however, yeah, it also did not survive our onslaught. I am slightly worried, however, by the funnel web spider right over there. As we are taking on scorpion after tiger beetle after scorpion, none shall remain standing. There we go, there is the funnel web spider. It has grabbed one of our ants and retreated back again. Oh dear. This is a bit of an onslaught that the Formica Ereptors were not expecting. In the meantime, the Dorylus nigricans, the black driver ants, have arrived again at the northwestern termite mound. These ants live in colonies of up to 2 million strong, with estimates of the weight of the colonies, like the individual bodies added together, being somewhere between 15 and 19 kilograms. And all of that will come from one queen that can lay up to 100,000 eggs in a day. That's basically up to almost 2 or 3 million per month. The black driver ants are invading the first of the termite mounds. It is highly unlikely this colony will survive. In fact, the king and queen have just been slain. They will now carry back the spoils of war, but the spoils will not reach the nest, not if the Formica Ereptors have anything to say about it. And so as the Dorylus nigricans are carrying back the spoils of war, the Formica Ereptors ambush them, slaying as many as they can. Unfortunately, the attackers are overwhelmed very quickly. Maybe a sneakier approach will work. Maybe if they attack the stragglers at the back of the raiding column, they will be able to take some of the spoils for themselves. This strategy is appearing to be a little bit more successful, as very quickly the Formica Ereptors grab the last of the spoils and start heading back to their own nest, as the black driver ants carry back the last of the eggs of the first termite colony. Well, that did not go well for those termites. It is time for the Formica Ereptors to dig more tunnels underground, excavating some of the termites that are hidden within this nest. Hopefully these will be able to sustain the colony. The termites above ground, however, are back again, and it's time for the Ereptors to mount another raid. Fire ants, leafcutter ants, and the wood ants all march as one towards the unsuspecting termites. Each slain termite will feed the colony, allowing it to grow larger and stronger. However, the Formica Ereptors know their limit, and it seems that with the arrival of the termite soldiers, they retreat once more. Mary is proving to be a thorn in the side of the Formica Ereptors, constantly attacking their raiding column and retreating as quickly as she arrives. Undeterred, however, the Formica Ereptors are marching forth. They must obtain as many termites as they possibly can if they are to survive. It is time for the Formica Ereptors' secret weapon. It is time to unleash the army ants. It seems as though the driver ants are now in fact attacking the southern termite mound, the mound that the Formica Ereptors have been raiding recently. Well, let's see how that plays out. In the meantime, the Formica Ereptors, now bolstered with 2 army ant major soldiers in their ranks, are marching to the northeastern colony. These army ants provide the Formica Ereptors with almost unnatural strength, bolstering their attacks and making them almost fearless. They will be valuable in the fights to come. However, all colonies must recognize when they are outnumbered, and so too the majority of the Formica Ereptors are making their way home, some more empty-mandibled than others. Perhaps another raid on the black driver ant raiding column is in order. It's all a matter of timing. There are a large number of termite carcasses being carried by this marching column. Perhaps the Formica Ereptors can capitalize on this. Indeed, having slain the driver ants that are carrying the termites, the Formica Ereptors are able to carry back the termite bodies to their own nest. It appears as though the driver ants have in fact taken out the second termite colony. 2 colonies remain. This is most unfortunate. The stink ants have arrived, and this means that the Formica Ereptors are now engaged in fierce mandible-to-mandible combat in their tunnels. This may be above the capabilities of this Formica Ereptor colony. However, they shall do their very best and fight to the last warrior to withstand the onslaught of the African stink ants. Surprisingly, it seems as though this Formica Ereptor colony is actually standing their ground very, very nicely. The last of this tunnel's stink ants has been slayed. There go the stink ants, most likely to go raid some of the termites in the nearby mounds. Indeed, having raided the northeastern colony, these stink ants are now making their way back to their nest. Again, using the tunnels of the Formica Ereptors to make their way back to their nest. Once again, fierce mandible-to-mandible fighting erupt within the tunnels. The Formica Ereptors have to slay as many of these stink ants as they possibly can. And once more they are victorious. But now the termites in the northeastern mound are getting ready for an attack. The driver ants are back. And in the meantime, the Formica Ereptors again are taking on a score of African stink ants. Attempting to prevent the stink ants from using these tunnels again in future, they use their bodies to block this tunnel and attack any stink ant that gets too close. And once more they prove successful. Now the Formica Ereptors try to use a different strategy, with a new cast waiting in the wings. To carry off the termites being carried home by the black driver ants, the Formica Ereptor soldiers are now to take on the marching column as they return with their spoils of war. and the workers are there to take away the spoils of war as it becomes available. This will serve two purposes. It engages the black driver ants in a constant fight for survival, while at the same time allowing the Formica Ereptors to carry back the spoils of war, keeping it out of the mandibles of these black driver ants. This should prove a successful strategy. There is, however, a massive marching column of large Dorylus nigricans soldiers arriving. This may prove too much for the Formica Ereptors. Indeed, the black driver ants have swept over the Formica Ereptor ants, taking many of them down in the process. Undeterred, however, the Formica Ereptors again take on the marching column. They will not give up so easily. Another horde of black driver ants are making their way to the termite mound. The Formica Ereptors, however, have realized that this is not the opportune moment to attack them. It seems as though the black driver ants have called off their attack for the day. They are heading home. Well. However, it does seem as though the Formica Ereptors will need a bit more firepower if they are to withstand the black driver ants for another onslaught or two. There's only one tunnel still being used by the African stink ants, and now the Formica Ereptors attempt to block that once more. If they can block off this tunnel, maybe, just maybe, the termites have a bit more of a fighting chance against the black driver ants, as the removal of these termitophages or termite-eating ants may actually allow the termites to build up their strength before the next black driver ant attack. Tonight there is even Pandinus Imperator in the area, the Emperor's Scorpion. Well, this may prove the most deadly evening thus far. As the Emperor's Scorpion stands guard outside the Formica Ereptor nest, some of the soldiers have been embroiled in a bit of a land war over here. The others have made their way to the termite mound and will try to take on some of the workers if they eventually emerge from the nest. The Formica Ereptors have decided that perhaps they should take on the termite colony to the southwest. This is going to be the most challenging termite colony to take on, since the workers are foraging away from the Formica Ereptor nest, and they therefore have to go past the soldiers that will almost certainly be emerging from the nest before they can get to the workers. However, this is a challenge they will meet head on, but they will only take on as many of these termites as is absolutely necessary for them to build up their food reserves once more. Once they have obtained enough food, they will simply go back to the colony, carrying back the spoils of war and hopefully not over-harvesting this colony. And the black driver ants are back. And here they come, the unending stream already carrying back the first victims back to their nest. And already the black driver ants are making their way into the nest. It seems as though indeed this termite nest has also been wiped out. One nest remains. And here come the black driver ants with the termite spoils of war. If they carry back this food to their nest, there is no chance. They may become unstoppable. Unfortunately, their numbers are simply too much for the Formica Ereptors, and they are slain without mercy. Food reserves are running dangerously low. Unfortunately, there is a wafer-lid trapdoor spider along the trail this Formica Ereptor colony was trying to utilize to get to the termites. Eventually, it is slain, but at what cost? The Formica Ereptors now have no choice. They must raid this last termite colony. If they do not, their livelihood is at stake. Unfortunately, earwigs are ambushing the Formica Ereptors, preventing them from taking very valuable food back to their nest. As new food arrives at the nest, new soldiers hatch, ready to take on the dangers outside. A solifuge. This may be more than this colony can handle. 2 solifuges, almost certainly more than this colony can handle, though the one has just been slain. Perhaps there is a fighting chance after all. The black driver ants are on the move. There is one termite colony left. It has no defenders. The Formica Ereptors are now all that stand between the black driver ants and their quarry. they must pass directly over the Formica Ereptor nest. And once more, Mary is a pain in the abdomen as she comes charging out, attacking some of the Formica Ereptors. The Formica Ereptors thankfully have enough food stored away to survive a bit of an onslaught. Whether it is enough is an entirely different matter. The first driver ants clash with the Formica Ereptors. This war will determine the fate of the entire savanna. The driver ants rely on sheer number, the Formica Ereptors on the diversity of ants within their ranks. The first battle goes to the Formica Ereptors. But there are more black driver ants on the way, this time with a multitude of very large mages. This reminds the Formica Ereptors very much of the battles they had in the Formicarium prior to their escape into the wild. Whether the strategies that allowed them to gain victory then will help them now is yet to be determined. But here they clash once more. Ant against ant, driver ant against leaf cutters, wood ants, fire ants, and of course army ants. The second battle also goes to the Formica Ereptors. But the third wave is already approaching. The Formica Ereptors defeating so many of these black driver ants, however, has allowed the termites to mount a bit of a defense. And once more, Mary appears, unfortunately to attack the Formica Ereptors and not the black driver ants. But once more, the Formica Ereptors have driven off the black driver ants. There's a temporary respite as the next wave approaches. This may be the largest battle yet. However, as quickly as they arrived, they turn back. It seems as though the last termite mound is not worth the trouble after all, and the Dorelis have been driven off without ever obtaining any food during this raid. The Formica Ereptors have in fact driven off the black driver ants. Now, with only one termite mound remaining, the Formica Ereptors have to be careful not to over-harvest it, allowing them to survive within the savanna ecosystem for many, many years to come. Despite the odds, the Formica Ereptors have survived, and they have firmly cemented their place within the African savanna. From here, the world is their oyster, and where they will go, no one knows. And with that, that is the end of our Formica Ereptor journey. So thank you very much everyone for joining us on our little adventure here. I hope you all had fun. It has been an amazing journey for me. I will of course be back with the Formica Ereptors when we have a new DLC for Empires of the Undergrowth. However, for now, my Tuesday and Friday video slot will be taken up by Grounded 2, which is releasing into early access today. So come and join me on Friday for the first of those episodes. And until then everybody, stay safe. I'll see you all soon. Cheers!